Hi, everyone. Welcome. This is the Surviving Life Today podcast, and I'm your host, Kelly McFarland. At Surviving Life Today, we are focused on how everyone is surviving life today. And as your host, I am an applied anthropologist who specializes in the food system. I'm also a farmer, a baker, and a food system activist. My focus professionally is in nutrition and access and how the food system, the United States industrial food system, and our local food system here in North Texas work. And I am making this recording today to talk about what the next steps are for my LLC Loaf and Leaf. And this kind of leads to another update that I have about the local food system and the food system in general and how we can make change. But to start out, I thought that this update would be a great way to talk about Loaf and Leaf, our next steps, and how now with the next steps that I'm taking with Loaf and Leaf, this helps to link together everything that I do as an anthropologist, an educator, farmer, baker, and small business owner. Okay, so I do want to start out by talking about the world today. I'm recording this on March 11th. We are very much globally in distress. There is a war in Iran that is a war of choice, which was initiated by the United States and Israel. I do not support this war of choice, and I am very upset about our friends and loved ones being put in harm's way. What I'm talking about as our next steps, kind of touches on this a little bit, but this is not a direct kind of talk about what is going on there. If you would like to follow a few leaders in discussing what's happening historically in the United States and how this impacts us, my recommendation would be Heather Cox Richardson and Dr. Joan Freeman. They're both excellent historians who kind of talk about what is happening today and what from the past helps us to navigate that. I am not talking about that in this update. However, it does touch on it because why am I taking these actions right now? Well, the Strait of Hormuz is closed, and this is a major shipping line in the Persian Gulf that transports oil and other supplies worldwide. We will be seeing an increase in gas prices here in the United States, but we're also going to see increasing prices in fertilizer. As a matter of fact, we've already seen those prices increase. And we will be seeing an increase in food prices as well. And so all of these things that are happening right now are things that I believe I can help with a little bit through what our next steps will be. And I can help to share some change, right? So a big thing that I studied as an applied anthropologist working with local farmers in the North Texas area is how to grow food despite climate change. And through my research with North Texas farmers in the local area, I developed a theory of climate adaptive ecological knowledge. So climate adaptive ecological knowledge is how the local food farmers in the North Texas area are already using sustainable practices to grow their food despite climate change. And a lot of these practices are going back to more traditional practices of farming multiple crops in the same area. But there's also great ideas with how to build a garden bed so that you can retain moisture, how to build a garden bed so that it feeds your plants when you plant them, and how to diversify the crops that you are using to withstand the heat that we have here in North Texas. So our purpose when we originally purchased this farm was to find a pathway to build the local system. So when we originally started, that was our goal. And as we started to grow, we built fencing, we created rotational grazing fields, we created small ecosystems for our ducks to live in so that they can be living in a more sustainable environment. And we created garden beds that are designed to withstand the weather. And then COVID hit. And so when COVID hit, all of the price for material to build went just through the roof, exorbitant pricing. And at the same time, we weren't allowed to be around people. And so we couldn't community build. And we just had a lot of barriers to growth. Since then, we've kind of just been in survival mode here on the farm. We are really struggling to get our feet back under us after just all of, the unprecedented events that have created the world we are in today, right? Just a series of events that have really hamstringed us. And so our turn now is going to be to a more opening up of the farm, to create farm workdays, to invite the community in, to spread my knowledge of how to grow all these things, and to hopefully make bigger change in the North Texas food system. So our next steps will be walking into how to create this change, how to community build, and how to have people here that we can educate further. We are planning some farm work days, so take out your calendars. March 28th and April 11th are currently our planned farm work days. During these farm work days, we can focus on splitting daffodils and talking about how to build a bulb garden, and then also working on our garden beds. My garden beds I put in almost 10 years ago now, and they are still surviving. But a few years ago, we got some mulch from a free mulch pile that completely polluted my entire garden area with weeds. And so my garden area is built out of the field. I had nothing to begin with. We just had the prairie type land here. And I decided on where we wanted to put the garden and how we wanted the layout to look. I designed the beds, built them from the ground up. I have 3 rows of, I think they're close to 100-foot beds. And then I have a great vineyard area and a lot more land to build on. We have a lot of space to grow. The garden area is most definitely not complete. It's building as we go. So during the farm work days, we're going to start by focusing on the gardens that are in place and remedying them so that they can grow for this next year. And then we will turn to building more garden plots. And ideally, this will lead to creating a garden plot availability for other people who would like to start to farm their own. I haven't worked out exactly how that will work yet, but we are building towards it, right? So the garden area, we have a pretty airtight plan on what our next steps will be. The splitting of the daffodils is the first priority that we have, and I'm working on that right now. The March 28th farm workday is ideally where that will be completed. That's what we will be mainly focusing on completing. I also have the garden beds in place that need to be really dug out and started again from scratch. And this is very helpful in that I can show you how to build garden beds that will retain moisture and that will feed your plants as they grow, not using fertilizer. And so this is using compost, and it's using matter that breaks down and feeds your plants in healthy ways. So look for the post. I'm going to have tickets available for these garden work days. The reason I am ticketing is because we don't have a large parking area here, and I need to monitor how many people are coming. And then also there's waivers to be signed here. So in the state of Texas, you can have agritourism, and I can have people come to visit my farm. I cannot afford to be liable for, a snake being in the garden bed, which I've never had a snake in the garden bed, let me be clear. But we are in the country, and this is land that is free to critters. So there's always the chance. So we will have the tickets available through this posting and through my website. I will also put them there. I'll put links to all of that. And you can get your ticket. It's a free ticket, but you do have to sign that waiver in order to visit the farm. And within the waiver, I have added a section about being interviewed. For these first few Farm Work Days, I'm not planning on doing interviews, but going forward, there will be a time where I want to link both this podcast and what's happening on the farm physically. And so when we get to that point, I do need your permission to interview you. In the waiver, if you choose not to be interviewed and you say no, that doesn't mean that you cannot visit the farm, but it does mean that, you didn't give consent. So that all the waiver is just attaining consent because I'm a researcher and that's how we do things as anthropologists. So that's going to be all included with that post. From these farm work days, the farm work days have a purpose and we are building forward, right? So everything that I'm talking about right now with Loaf and Leaf, it's strategically designing for the future. So the future of Loaf and Leaf is going to intersect with the future of Locally Yours. If you'd like to see about Locally Yours, I have recorded a Locally Yours pitch. You can access that through the recordings on my YouTube channel. But Locally Yours is the idea of having a food distributor in order to market local food, specifically looking at building the local food system, having more local food producers, having more local food restaurants, and finding a way for farmers to sell into the system without them needing to be on site in order to make sales. Okay, so Locally Yours at the farm is kind of like the next step for Loaf and Leaf. And so I do want to, these farm days will be leading to having an acre of our land as a site for a grocer/restaurant, Locally Yours at Loaf and Leaf. And so this will be a small scale grocer, distributor, bakery, garden, farm, club type area where I can expand what I'm doing to educate future farmers, future business owners, people in the area who want to learn to farm, people who want to start reinvesting in local food and building out the food system. With this as a brick and mortar grocer, the main big thing that we can do here is start to develop a way for local food farmers to sell into industrial food. Sorry for a bit of a glitch here, but when I was doing my thesis research with local food farmers in the area, there were several of them that were big enough that they could sell into industrial food. There was one farmer who was selling peaches and one that was selling chickens. And both of them told me the main reason why they could not sell into industrial food was the contracts. It really was not the idea that they could not produce enough to sell. It was that they didn't have a team of lawyers to protect their interests so that they could sell into the grocery store. Now, I know as a local consumer who studies local foods that consumers do want to see local foods at their grocery store. They do want to have the option for a one-stop shop, incorporating the local food system and the local economy. So developing a way to have contracts that protect farmers so that they can sell into industrial food is a purpose of putting Locally Yours in Loaf and Leaf and having a grocer on the farm. We'll be needing a street entrance. We'll be needing to figure out how to make a brick and mortar and the areas to grow within the local economy. But through creating this local brick and mortar that is focused on growing the local food system, we'll start to be able to educate others in how to farm in bad weather, how to farm during the heat, how to farm in bad soil, which there is a lot of bad soil in the area. There's a lot of bad soil in the United States in general. We've been over farming since the Dust Bowl, and there's been so many directions from the United States agriculture that is talking about saving topsoil and farming appropriately and using all of these things. And then at the same time, there's these Secretary of Agriculture who says that we need to use food as a weapon, right? So there's contrast everywhere we look at it within the food system. But over farming is a big, big problem. And then this builds into having a site where we can grow the local food system together. And we can really start to educate build a community and have many more producers that not only, like, it's kind of a twofold thing, right? In local food, on one, you have to be able to produce the food. You have to be able to grow it. You have to be able to raise the animals. You have to be able to do all those things. The second side of it is figuring out how to sell it. And there's many local food producers who will figure out the one side of it for growing it, but then can't figure out how to sell it. And so this is tailor-made for that idea. So I think that covers everything that is the next step for Locally Yours and Loaf and Leaf and our Kamic farmland and the next step for the farm. Don't forget, farm work and training days will be planned for March 28th and April 11th. There will be a ticket sign up and there will be a waiver form. So be sure that you sign up. Other than that, I believe that is all that I had to cover today for the update. So thank you so much for joining me. It is great that we are building a community here. I am so excited for all the next steps that we will be able to do. I hope that whatever you are doing in life, you are hanging in there because the world is crazy right now. But also, I hope that you survive and thrive in all that you do. Take care.